Hello and welcome. What the fuck? We'll just restart that. Blip, 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 blip. Here we go. Hello and welcome to Three's a Crime, a true crime podcast. I'm Tori.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Lindsey.
And that's our intro.
Here we are professional podcasters.
We're podcasters, bitches. So, in order to prepare you guys, because we are talking about dark material, and in particular, this paranormal stuff that kind of includes the occult, we thought we would do a little meditation to put you guys into a protective space for when you listen. And if you don't believe in woo-woo and you're like, fuck, this is dumb, you can fast forward it. No problem. We're not going to be offended.
Better safe than sorry, though, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. So, what we're going to do is we're going to start by taking 3 deep breaths. Okay? So,
In through the nose, out through the mouth.
Okay, and one more. Okay. Now, if you're in a safe space where, as Lindsey said, not driving, you can go ahead and close your eyes. If you're listening at work in your headphones and your boss doesn't know what you're listening to and you can't look like you're sleeping, again, leave your eyes open, but otherwise you can close your eyes. And we want you to imagine yourself surrounded in golden light. So I usually picture kind of like a dome over my whole house, or you can do it over your work or whatever, just this dome of golden light. Then on the inside of your home, I want you to picture just blue smoke filling every room, crevice, all the different spaces. And then we want you to say, and you need to say this in your own voice, that only those of 100% divine light with the greatest intentions for all may remain.
Bang, sponsor us.
Bang! I'm just going to take a sip and go bang!
Bang! Every time she sips, we're just going to hear bang!
Before we get into the story, I wanted to mention a couple of things. One, coffee this week we got from Jacob's Java.
Jacob.
And we would like to shout out Lily, who was our barista today and was so sweet.
Thank you.
But Lily was so sweet and wonderful. We just love her. She's fabulous.
Yes,
They're
thank
right
you.
down the street from me. They have great. They're the original coffee stand in Spokane.
But actually, it's amazing coffee, and the girls that work there are super hardworking. And then thing number 2 is that we got our lunch today from Azel's Chicken.
Chimkin.
Is it just Azel's Chicken or
Azel's Famous Chicken? I think it's called.
Azel's? It was very good.
We got basically everything.
We did.
Delicious.
We tried their chicken. We tried their chicken tenders, their mashed potatoes, their corn, their coleslaw,
okra.
Their fried okra is very good. So today, do you guys want to hear what we're talking about today?
Yeah.
Today,
Yeah.
today we're going to be talking about Ronald DeFeo Jr.
I keep wanting to say Willem Dafoe, which is
Oh my
not
God.
correct.
I
No.
wish.
That's who I picture when you say DeFeo.
I wish it was
DeFeo.
Willem.
And then we're going to be talking about the Amityville Horror House.
Amityville.
Well, the Amityville horror in general.
Warrens.
Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe.
So this is going to help you out. So Ronald DeFeo Jr. was based on
What?
God. Ronald DeFeo Jr. was born on September 26, 1951. He was the firstborn and first son of Ronald DeFeo Sr., who was also known as Big Ronnie, and
Oh, no.
Louise DeFeo. When Big Ronnie and Louise married, her very wealthy parents opposed the marriage and cut ties with them. That was until little Ronnie, who was also known as Butch, was born. And I'm just going to call him Butch because there's a lot of DeFeos, as you will hear, and just easier to differentiate who's who. So it seems that Louise's father helped them out financially, and it explained how they were able to purchase the 5-bedroom home at 112 Ocean Avenue in the affluent Long Island South Shore community of Amityville. And Emily is laughing at me, and I don't know why.
I'm going to tell you why. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I was playing Ocean Avenue. Because that's where they lived.
That was so...
Night.
Yellow card, motherfucker. I saw them live.
Hey.
Oh.
Oh.
Tori's...
Okay. So it explained how they were able to purchase the 5-bedroom home at 112 Ocean Avenue. The home is in the affluent Long Island South Shore community of Amityville. And I mentioned this because people in town were kind of wondering how they could afford this house on a car dealership service manager salary. So they got a lot from Louise's parents. Big Ronnie and Louise both had opulent taste, and their home was filled with the finest things. In the early 1970s, Big Ronnie had life-size portraits commissioned of the family, totaling upwards of $50,000, which his father-in-law paid for.
What the fuck?
The Schitt's Creek painting. You guys watch Schitt's Creek, right?
That's what I thought.
That's literally what I pictured.
Yeah.
But it's not just one portrait. It was
individual.
He and Ronnie, and then Louise had her own, and then it was the 2 girls and the two boys. So we're gonna get to that. But it took over a year to complete, and the detail on these paintings is so fine that when I was researching the story, I actually thought that they were photographs until I opened them up and could see that they were paintings. Yeah. And the only one that I realized that the one of the 2 younger DeFeo boys was a painting.
Oh dear.
Because it was it's kind of creepy, to be honest. He had these commissioned, $50,000. They were in these golden frames, and they actually lined the staircase going up from the first to the second floor. Also creepy, knowing what we know now, or you guys are about to, is that in the front of the house hung a sign that said "High Hopes."
Oh yeah.
Why?
I forgot about that.
It was just, people put up live, love, laugh. It was like that.
They used that, I think, in the movie.
Yeah. And they also had, they were Italian, very Catholic. They had a lot of religious imagery outside of the house, like statues of Jesus and Mary and that kind of thing. Big Ronnie seems to have been kind of a bipolar parent, sort of showing affection one minute and then being totally abusive the next.
Lovely.
Yeah, and a lot of it seemed to be directed at Butch because he was the first son, so a lot was expected of him. And it really didn't help that he was overweight as a child and bullied incessantly because of his weight. And he actually remained overweight until his teens when he started using amphetamines.
Well, that'll
just take it right off you.
That weight, yep.
But there were several stories of kind of the abuse that that Butch suffered at the hands of Big Ronnie. He would strike, push, otherwise harm him. So there was a story that Louise's brother, so that would have been Butch's uncle, they were all downstairs watching TV in the basement, and little toddler Ronnie did something that Big Ronnie didn't like. So he calmly like gets up, walks over, and then just shoves the toddler into the wall.
Oh my. Fuck.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
I don't have kids, but I assume that's not how we treat toddlers.
not how we treat
No.
children, not how we treat toddlers and
Toddlers.
Chodlers.
Chodlers, am I right?
I'd be like, oh my god, these chodlers.
These
yodeling pickles.
Yeah, like why does Amazon think I
Did
need
you
a
get my
yodeling
fucking
pickle?
screenshot of what my phone is full of now for clicking on the yodeling pickle?
No.
You know what?
There's a lot of sexual imagery that came from it. Things that are very phallic shaped.
That is very funny. The one thing too here I want to point out is that Big Ronnie wasn't just called Big Ronnie
Every
because
time-
he was a big, tall guy.
Ronnie.
Or
Every
he
time
was
you
like-
say Big Ronnie, I think of Ronnie from Jersey Shore. That's truly
Oh,
Ronnie.
yeah.
I never watched
mean,
Jersey Shore.
It's kind of similar.
great.
I mean,
They're
you
both.
know,
I mean, that's
like,
just. I
it's-
imagine
you got
his.
that Italian meathead kind of vibe.
Ted Laundry. That's all I know.
Sorry, go on.
So anyway, Big Ronnie wasn't just called Big Ronnie because he was the father, and then it was Big Ronnie, Little Ronnie. Like he was legit a big man,
Oh,
and so to push a toddler, there was some force.
which is why probably he was chubby because he's probably gonna be bigger.
Right? Yeah. So
Poor little kid.
sometime in the late 1962. That doesn't make sense. Sometime in late 1962.
She was vaccinated and drugged last night.
I really was. So Butch would have been around 10 or 11. Louise actually left Big Ronnie,
Oh.
but why she what prompted her to leave, what was the breaking point, is unknown. So to get her back, he co-wrote a song
God.
called "The Real Thing,"
Whoa.
which was later recorded by jazz great Joe Williams.
What the fuck?
And in any event, it worked, and Louise went home, back to her family. So in total, 7 DeFeos were living at 112 Ocean Ave. So there's Big
Wow.
Ronnie, who was 43, Louise, 42, which freaks me out when I think that I'm about to turn 42, so she was my age essentially. And then there was Butch, 23, Dawn, 18, Allison, 13, Mark, 12, and John, 9.
Good
So those were
God.
their ages as of 1974. In the early evening, somewhere around 6:30 on November 13th, 1974, Butch runs into Henry's bar screaming, "You have to help me. I think my mother and father are shot." He falls to his knees. He's wailing. He's still screaming I need help. I need help. And his best friend, Robert Kelsky, who's also known as Bobby, ran to him, and they gathered a group of people to go back to the DeFeo house, which is only a block, maybe half a block away. So those were Butch, Bobby, John Altieri, Joey Yeswalt, Al Saxton, and William Ciordamalia.
Whoa.
I'm sure that was wrong, but he was the owner of Henry's bar. They all pile into Butch's car, but Butch for some reason was in the back and Bobby was driving. I guess they just thought he was too distraught to drive. But so Bobby just floors it. And they are literally at the house within seconds.
Jesus.
Much to the protestation, I guess, of...
Is that a word?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. It is now.
It is, I mean...
This is our podcast.
Despite, yeah.
Copyright
I
Tori.
mean, they were protesting in the back, slow fuck down. But they were there in seconds. So they get there, and Bobby, being Butch's best friend, had been to the house several times. He knew the family. So he gets out, and he's just, charging towards the front door. And somebody back there, one of the men yells, oh my God, the person could still be inside. And Bobby was like, I don't care. So he runs, he goes right up the stairs, right into the master bedroom, flicks on the light, and he finds Big Ronnie in his boxer shorts, face down on the bed, clearly bullet hole in his back, and just blood soaking into his boxer shorts. Now with Louise, it was November, there was kind of a chill, so she was all bundled up in blankets, but he couldn't see any visible wounds because of that, but it was clear that she wasn't alive. By this point, the rest of the guys are upstairs with Bobby, and he looked like he was just about to, like his knees were about to buckle. So they took him downstairs to kind of get him back to it. And then John Altieri, he stayed upstairs to go look around, and he was the one to find Mark and John, the two boys, deceased in their beds. John's Nick sweatshirt obscured his bullet wound, but his sweatshirt was covered in blood. And then across the room, Mark, who had recently suffered a football injury, had crutches next to his bed, and there was a very visible bullet hole in his back.
Fuck.
So Altieri left the room and joined the other men downstairs. Joseph Yeswolt then called 911 and reported 4 bodies because they hadn't found the DeFeo sisters yet.
Oh.
And I actually read the transcript of the 911 call, and it's crazy because, I don't think Amityville is a very big place, and they called the Suffolk Police Department, and it's like, hello, and then, this Joey guy's like, we got dead bodies here. And it was a lot of like, wait, what's your, like, they weren't hearing each other. The connection must not have been great. So there's several minutes of just back and forth where he's like, and then finally the operator is just like, I'm going to put you on with the police. And then they have to go through the whole thing again because the guy's like, Jesus Christ. Like, because he's trying to tell you
there's
his
dead
name.
people in here.
Yeah.
My God.
He's like, literally just send everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that
Send
literally
them all.
is like a send everybody. So all of the victims were found face down and had been shot with a .35 caliber lever action Marlin 336C rifle. I don't know if that's a 336C or 336. Like, I don't know anything about guns, but that's what it was. The time of death was placed around 3 a.m. in the morning. Both DeFeo parents had been shot twice, and each of the children had been shot once. Physical evidence showed that both Louise and Allison had been awake at the time they were shot. Police initially took Butch into custody as he suggested that mafia hitman Louis Fellini had carried out the murders. The only problem was that Fellini had an alibi, and a pretty airtight one. He wasn't even in the state at the time of the murders.
That's not going to work.
So police continued to question Butch, focusing on some serious inconsistencies in his story, which had then raised their suspicions. The day after the murders, Butch finally confessed that he had actually been the one to carry out the murders.
Well, that happened quickly. Okay.
Yeah. Stating,
Story's over, everybody. See you next week.
Stating, once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast.
Mia's thwapping her tail on that. She made eye contact with Lindsey.
The day after the murders, Butch confessed that he had actually been the one to carry out the murders, stating, quote, once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast. He had claimed he had drugged the family earlier in the evening. He admitted that after the murders, he took a bath.
Okay.
Got redressed. And then, discarded the evidence on his way to work. Mia? Come here, Mia.
Mia,
Come
your
here.
tail.
Come here.
Mia is our shop dog for podcast days.
Yes.
So he admitted that after the murders, he took a bath, got
Gross.
redressed, dumped the weapon and the cartridges and stuff on his way to work, and then just went to work that day as normal.
Isn't that what you do?
I mean, you slaughter your entire family, take a quick bath, some nice relaxation time, maybe light a candle.
Yeah, a little me time.
How much did you have as a me time?
Yeah,
Finally
family
got
and
You
Yeah.
can't
To
be
yourself.
constantly only thinking about others. I mean, you gotta
Right.
have some me time after you murder your whole family.
Well, usually family annihilators are really just disassociate
I mean,
or whatever. I don't know. They're a wacky world.
And what actually raised the police's suspicion the most is he asked very early on, when he could file an insurance claim on his parents.
Oh my God, bro.
And so that was their thought, was that, immediately their thought is that this is a murder for money.
what a dumbass.
I mean,
what a fucking
yeah.
dumbass.
Well, and the other thing too is, I watched a lot of stuff on DeFeo, and there was definitely something that's not right in his brain for sure. And I don't know that being in prison necessarily helped that. Yeah, but it's too much to compute how you could do that.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a quick little break right here.
Bleep, bop, boop.
Yep. Cool. Done.
And now we're back.
And we're back
Did
with
you miss
Mia.
us?
We were gone so long.
We missed you.
We did. So, Butch, from the time of that initial confession, like up into the 2000s, Butch has given multiple accounts of what happened that night, and each one is very different.
Fabulous.
Okay, so to recap, first it was the mob hitman.
Right.
Okay. Then he acted alone. He just killed the whole family.
Okay.
Okay.
How many of them were there that he killed? Like 5?
6.
6. Okay.
2 parents, 2 brothers, 2 sisters.
Okay.
And nobody else is. He's the only one left, right?
He's the only.
That was
yeah.
literally his
He's-
whole family?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was the whole
Okay.
family. During the trial, he claimed that he had killed his parents and family in self-defense
Okay.
as he heard their voices plotting to kill him.
Okay. Let's kill a 9-year-old. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Right. So
And then
some
leave.
people believed that like he was actually, hearing they were taking him saying that he heard their voices, which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
Like I heard their voices.
Not saying
plotting
I
to kill
heard them
me.
plotting to kill me.
Not that I heard them or
I
whatever.
heard their voices.
So there are people out there that believe that he was hearing something from within the house that was telling him to do it. He'd also admitted previously that he had taken LSD. He was doing heroin. I keep hitting my mic. He had definitely been an adventurous drug user. And so people were like, well, maybe he was hallucinating and thought, because he literally, I'm going to talk about it in a little bit, but he literally like had this whole thing about how a black shadow appeared to him and handed him the rifle.
Oh
So,
my.
yeah.
All right.
So I read a few different things, and I watched something where Butch was saying he adamantly did not want to plead insanity. He did not think that he was insane and didn't want anybody else to think that he was insane. But his lawyer, William Weber, was like, dude, this is it. This is your only option.
Yeah.
Is to plead insanity. And so he did. And the trial began on October 14th, 1975. And by November 21st, 1975, he had been found guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder. Sentencing was held on December 4th of 1975, and he received 6 sentences of 25 years to life.
Wow. Jeez.
Now, just because he was convicted, or I don't know, maybe because he was convicted, he continued to elaborate or completely change the story
He
of what
just
happened.
kept going.
Yeah, I mean
Interesting.
it's crazy. He would alternate these versions where oh no, he was insane or he wasn't insane. It was just a defense strategy. But one of the things that he really likes to say in a lot of these is that Dawn was an accomplice. His sister Dawn.
Oh.
At one point he said that Dawn hated her younger sister Allison, who was 13, because she thought she was prettier than Dawn. Like Dawn thought she was prettier than her.
Mia's prettier than all of us.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the story where he said a dark figure appeared before him and gave him the weapon and told him what to do. He claimed that this dark entity had gone with him from room to room as he killed his family. He said he was not in control and was not in touch with reality when he did what he did.
They always say that.
Right?
But he's claiming he's not insane.
Saying it's a spook.
I guess that's
Yeah.
not insane. That's claiming that something
Right.
else.
Blaming
Right.
Satan.
But in 1986, he had given an interview with Newsday where he claimed that Dawn had killed their father, and then his mother so distraught that her children killed her husband that she killed everybody else.
Oh my god, yeah. She looked like she could
And
probably
then
handle that gun.
then he claimed that he hadn't told investigators about this and just took the complete blame from the beginning because he was too afraid to say anything negative about his mother to his grandfather or uncle because he was afraid that they would kill him.
Oh my god.
In 1990,
Still wasn't born.
he filed
You fucking bitches.
he filed a motion. All right. In 1990, he filed a motion to have his sentence vacated, claiming Dawn and an unknown assailant had killed their parents.
Oh my god. Who
And-
now?
And Dawn had murdered the siblings, but the
Jesus.
unknown assailant had run off before he was able to get a look at him.
Some random dude broke in, was like, "Hey, you want some help annihilating the whole family?"
Exactly.
Piece right out at the end
Yeah,
of
I
it.
know.
I'll
but
give you the gun.
it's like, but apparently he was trying to say that it was Dawn and the unknown assailant was helping her. But I don't know what happened in that story where Dawn dies, Anyway.
Yeah, how does she?
In 2000, Butch sat down with Rick Azuna, who wrote the book The Night the DeFeos Died, which was published in 2002. Osuna said that they spoke for about 6 hours, and at this meeting, DeFeo claimed that he and Dawn, along with 2 of their friends, had killed the parents, quote, out of desperation because his parents were plotting to kill him. He claimed
Ugh.
that Dawn and their father had gotten into a particularly nasty argument, and that he and Dawn together had decided to kill their parents. He claimed that Dawn had killed the siblings to, quote, get rid of witnesses, but that he was so enraged with what Dawn had done that he knocked her unconscious and shot her in the head.
What?
And then I had watched an interview with him on YouTube, which was around 2000 as well, where he kind of tells a similar version of this story, but he claims that Dawn instigated him into going into his parents' room and with the gun, and he said he was only going to go in there to scare them. That was the only thing he wanted to do. But then when his father woke up and saw him with the gun, and he's like, well, then I had to shoot him out of fear. So the funny thing I think about this is that of all of these stories, in the majority of them, he's still admitting to murder.
He's just changing.
He's just
He's
I didn't do
changing.
all of them. I'm not that bad. I didn't do all of them. Yeah.
Mia's chewing on a bone really loudly. If you hear it, sorry.
There are some interesting things about this case that, depending upon what you believe, could raise some questions about what happened. So, all 6 of the victims were found face down on their beds. There was no sign of a struggle. They didn't appear to have been moved.
I was wondering that how they were all face down.
They were all
Yeah.
and
the
shot in the
entire
back,
family.
right? All of them
Mhm.
were shot in the back.
Well, I think so. All of them were shot in the back. But they also concluded that no silencer had been used.
So how did it not wake up the other ones?
How
Why
did
were
it
they
not
still
wake
laying-
everybody in the house?
Nobody
None-
was up moving, trying to.
None of the
Yeah.
neighbors heard anything other than their dog barking.
Oh.
And that was one kid heard the dog barking.
Oh god damn it, kid.
Yeah.
Kids ruin everything.
Contrary to any of Butch's stories, where he said he had drugged the family, toxicology found no traces that the family had been drugged. So yeah, how did he
So he
go?
said he drugged them, but he didn't.
Correct.
I just scratched my sunburn. Ow.
One of Butch's main claims that Dawn had participated in the murders was that unburned gunpowder was found on her nightgown. Butch and his supporters claim that this shows that she fired a weapon that night.
Okay.
But, okay, so a ballistics expert testified that unburned gunpowder is discharged through the muzzle of a weapon. So what this actually
Yeah.
indicated was that she had just been in close proximity to the muzzle when the gun went off. But here's my question. The family was found face down,
Right.
and they hadn't been moved. So
That's what I was gonna ask.
I'm it seems like the gunpowder would have been on based on that, the gunpowder, if it was from the muzzle, it would be
she
on the
was shot
back.
in the back.
Right, it would be on the back of her nightgown.
Does it say anything about their?
I didn't read the book, so I got everything from articles and stuff, so none of them go into detail about where, some of them I have where they were shot in the back, but
Does
not,
it say anything about validity of the blood? Like, when they know if a body's been moved based on the blood stop. Is it validity? Is that the word I'm thinking
No.
of?
But I know maybe it is, yeah.
Lividity.
Yeah. The medical examiner also found no indication that Dawn had been involved in a struggle. So either way, it seems kind of weird to me that he continued to make up stories, because in most of them, again, like I said, he's admitting that he's still a murderer.
Yeah.
He's just changing out
And
who
he's already
was
been
involved.
sentenced, which is weird.
Right.
It's not like he's trying to.
Keeps just
Yeah.
adding and subtracting people.
Ronald DeFeo Jr. died this year, March 12th, 2021, at the
Dang.
Albany Medical Center. The official cause of death has not been released,
Oh.
which I think is weird.
How old
That's
was he?
bizarre.
He was like
60s?
69 or something, maybe.
Not old.
No, not super old. And I thought that I had read that he died of cancer. Then when I was looking at it, I was like, oh no, it doesn't say cancer. I mean,
Mia's
really?
digging for a specific toy now, so we're
just gonna have to ride it out.
Oh, did you get it?
Oh, you found the green one.
Nobody heard
No.
shit.
And a shotgun would be real fucking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My God, how long? And it's a huge house too. So I'm also thinking, like, if you shoot the mom and dad first, there's got to be a point where one of the kids is like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah, they hear something and they're
You
up
think
and
one
moving.
of them would be shot in the hallway? Yeah.
Mia.
Mia is she chews on it right on the edge of the couch, so that happens a lot. And I get the really heavy duty BarkBox toys. BarkBox sponsor us, and I'm obsessed with them. They're the best. company
Sponsor
ever.
us, and we'll sponsor you.
I am so obsessed
Yeah.
with BarkBox. Seems like that's what would kill you in prison at 68 or
Yeah.
60, whatever he was.
I think he was 69. when he
Nice.
died.
69.
So about a year after the DeFeo's murder, a newly married couple, George and Kathy Lutz, purchased the home.
George and Kathy.
Do you think Lutz was related to the 30 Rock Lutz that everyone hates? Did you guys watch 30 Rock? I hate you both. It's sad.
I mean, I watched some of them. I just never.
Lutz
Yeah.
was the character everybody hated.
We're getting to the spooky.
Spooky. So, George and Kathy were able to snag this home, this Dutch colonial. Everything that you watch about Amityville, they make a very distinct, like,
Oh my
beautiful Dutch colonial.
Yeah, this
So-
house
and
just looks like a house. I'm sorry.
Every time she has the deepest
Guys.
sigh, Mia.
So, about a year after the DeFeo murders, a newly married couple, George and Kathy Lutz, purchased the home. They were able to get this home for $80,000, which was considered a steal.
Yeah, for that big of a house.
$80,000?
$1,000.
And when is this now?
This is 1975, but they're purchasing this 5-bedroom Dutch colonial with a swimming pool and a boathouse.
Oh yeah,
So I mean, it was like
it was like a steal.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was just
very
like this
fancy.
is too good to be true. And I guess they've been looking. George and Kathy each had their own houses, so they wanted to sell them and then have one like fresh start. This is our place. And she was coming with 3 children from her previous marriage. So there was Danny, 9, Christopher, 7, and Melissa, who they called Missy, who was 5, and then their dog Harry.
I love that that's the dog's
Oh,
name.
Harry.
But no, like they had looked at all of these different houses, and this one is like the jewel. It's the best neighborhood, and it's safe, and the schools are
Red
great.
flag. Red flag. It's
Right.
cheap and everything is perfect.
Somebody's always dead
Right,
there.
Something is dead there.
So
Yeah.
apparently the realtor,
Something is
after
always
they
dead there.
said that they liked the house and were interested, is when the realtor said, "Hey, so don't know if I should have told you this before I showed it to you, but
Ugh.
here's what happened."
A dude slaughtered his entire family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're
Oops.
talking, again, a 5-bedroom home, a swimming pool, a boathouse, and for an additional $400, it was coming furnished. And we know,
Ew, wait a second.
yeah.
Oh.
But think about it this way.
No, I don't want to. I've already
Well,
decided I
mean,
hate it.
I mean, for George and Kathy,
Nope.
they're
my
just kind of
God.
like,
Nope.
well, here, this whole house, you know,
It's
like,
all
here's
ready,
this
we
house
just have to
furniture. And we know
walk
that the
in.
DeFeos had taste for the finer things.
Oh.
So, like, with a young family with 3 kids already, like, I think it was just
Okay.
a deal too good to pass up.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Would you, if you found,
If you found the perfect house in the perfect location and someone said, hey, 6 people were murdered here, but you can keep the furniture that's like super highbrow and amazing, would you do it?
So Lindsay's like, no. And it's funny because I do get like the ick from stuff where I can feel like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that the cheap woman that lives inside me, like the one that loves Marshalls
fucking
and
deal?
TJ Maxx, loves a deal. I don't know that I could have said
I
no
do
to
think
that.
my first question would be, which pieces of furniture don't have blood on them?
Okay.
Or didn't?
So
and
wait.
then I
Yeah.
would evaluate that, but then I feel like I would be like, the fact that I had to ask that question makes me think I don't want them. Thanks.
So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You this week, so they always joke that I like ruin their stories because I ask a question like right before they're about to
Sorry.
do their big reveal.
Oh,
And I ruin it for them every time.
Did I do that just now?
I mean, no, it's a really good segue into it. I said, like, again, honestly, if it were me, I don't know. The deal lady in me feels one way. The woo woo in me is like, hell no. I want that plate.
But then-
Everything
But
else.
that's what I was gonna say. It'd be like before you were woo woo, like
Before I was woo woo, I probably wouldn't have cared.
I wouldn't have taken the furniture,
I don't think.
but I think I would do the house.
So,
Oh, I don't know.
But I'm like, maybe I can exorcist it out of there with.
well, here's what I. This is a big reveal moment though, because I think that you are gonna nope. I'm looking at Emily. You are gonna nope out of your chair away from this.
oh my god.
I just imagined that.
Okay, so no,
Nope.
yeah.
Nope.
Yes. Now I literally wrote, to an extent, I understand this. You know, they're a young couple. This place
old
is
are they?
coming furnished.
like 20s?
Like yeah, or
probably.
like they were,
Newly.
or like in their 30s. They both been married before. I think they
Oh.
were like in their 30s,
Yeah.
but newly married. This is them kind of coming together.
Right.
But they're still relatively young, and they've got these 3 kids, and so they did keep and use the furniture. They also used and kept and used the bed frame
No.
Oh, I
of
knew
the
it.
DeFeo children.
I knew
The beds that they were murdered in.
it. Oh my fucking
Did their
fuck.
kids sleep in it?
Yeah.
Ah! Okay.
What?
Kept and used
Oh.
the bed frames of the DeFeo children.
Oh.
I wrote, the ones they were murdered in. This hasn't been buzzing in a long time. Now that we're talking about spirits, it's buzzing.
Dude, we're gonna need to sage this house again.
I'm stopping here at this point just to say that everything from this point on is kind of, subject to your own belief. I will try and endlessly brief what supposedly happened in the 28 days that the Lutzes actually lived in the home. There are different versions. People have different recollections. People have recanted. So I've done my best to consult a variety of sources that sort of lined out for the most consistent story. So if you know of something and I miss it, I apologize in advance. Like, what was that?
Sounds like maybe Eris was drinking out of the toilet and it just fell on her head.
Which she's not supposed to drink out of the toilet, so like we didn't
That
hear
was
her
the
scream.
toilet
She was fine. That
fighting
was the
back.
toilet lid falling.
My God, I thought it was another
got it.
goddamn ghost.
So anyway, basically the realtor explains to them what happened in the house. they decided,
They give their children the dead people's
yeah,
fucking
all
beds.
of that.
After they fell in love with the house, they told him.
Yeah. When the kids have their own bedroom, like, you're gonna need a 4 or 5 bedroom house.
They did this in American Horror Story. Do you remember the realtor in the first season where
Yes.
she was like, "It's beautiful," but then all of a sudden I have to tell
Right.
you that.
Yeah, and that was kind of the
You find yourself a realtor that doesn't fucking find yourself a realtor that says, "Hey, before we do this, before you fall in love with
Yeah.
this, let me
Who's
tell you
honest.
this so you can be sure you actually want to go see it." Because
Exactly.
falling in love with something like that and then having it,
right.
you're obviously going to go with it. You already fell in love with it and you just convince yourself it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Right. And, and George Lutz, says that they sat all the kids down and, do you guys want to live here?
My kids, other kids were murdered in your bed.
Yeah.
You're gonna sleep.
Yay or nay?
Yeah. But apparently everybody was on board. So
It's the
they were-
70s too. People weren't really paying attention.
Yeah. So
Makes sense, kind of.
So after they decided to buy the house, though, a friend of George's was like insistent, like, dude, I know what happened in that house. Like, you need to get that house blessed ASAP. And George had been like raised a Methodist but wasn't practicing, so he was like, I don't know what that is, what that entails. But Kathy was a lapsed Catholic, so she explained, you have the police come
Catholic?
over. Lapsed. Like,
What is that?
The opposite of relapse.
They're like
not the
no
opposite, but
longer. They
lapsed,
kind of like
yeah.
Okay,
grew
like,
up.
that's kind of what I thought.
But they
you
don't-
are Catholic, but you're
not
not a practicing Catholic.
Correct.
Yeah.
Got it.
She explained, and turns out that George had a friend who was a priest, and they called him Father Ray, and he agreed to come and do the blessing. So when he gets there, it's moving day. This is December 18th, I believe. The Lutzes are outside. They're unloading the moving van. So Father Ray's like, I'm just gonna go in, and he starts doing his, his business around the room. And so apparently the process is when you go in, you enter a room, you open a window, and then you kind of flick holy water around the room, and you say a prayer, and then you demand that anything that is in there leaves, and then you close the window. So, like, it's actually like you're ushering them out, close the window,
That makes sense.
move to the next room, repeat the process, right? So, however, Father Ray entered what had been John and Mark's bedroom, and as he was, like, doing his thing, he hears a, like, male guttural voice tell him to get out.
Oh god, I don't like it.
Ooh, such full body chills just now.
Yeah.
Oh, it makes me sick.
I also read some sources that said that he also, like, felt like he was slapped. Father Ray, obviously alarmed, was like, I'm out.
Fuck this.
Yeah, like,
I'm done. Nope.
yeah, outie. So
Yaddy.
So Father Ray's like, I'm out of here. He leaves and says nothing to the family. Like, just
Just
goes-
runs out, runs away.
yeah. I think he just leaves and it's like, you done? Sure, yep.
Red
okay.
flag number 2, a priest comes running out of your
Yeah.
home.
Right.
Don't move in. That's 2 strikes now for this
Dude,
family.
yeah.
Where they
2 red
shouldn't have been
flags.
in.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Bye, bitches.
Doesn't even tell him.
Whoop, whoop,
Like
whoop, whoop.
nothing.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
So, but that on Christmas Eve, George has said that they had a brief conversation about that room where, I don't know, they were discussing plans for it or whatever, and George had said, oh, Kathy's going to make that her sewing room, and that Father Ray responded and said, good. Just as long as no one sleeps in there, it's probably fine.
Oh my, but
But nothing else. Like, he never said what happened,
He's
whatever.
like, what's the most ominous thing I can say right now?
Oh, yeah, right? Okay,
damn.
so here's where stories kind of diverge. Well, let me put it this way. So there was a later lawsuit, I believe, between some of the people and Jay Anson who wrote the book, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But under oath in an affidavit, Father Ray said that the only contact he had ever had with the Lutz family was by telephone. Like, I've never been there. I don't know them. I've never seen them. Okay. But then in 1979, He appeared on the TV program In Search Of, hosted by Leonard Nimoy. I told that to Lindsay yesterday. She's like, I love that. Now I'm like, I've got to find episodes
Yeah.
on that on YouTube or something. But he appeared like in that silhouette, you know, where they like black out your body, you know. So
Change your voice.
change your
whatever.
yeah, and so I'm like, okay, well that could be Father Ray, or that could be somebody claiming their Father Ray. Like, I don't know, but somebody appeared on that show as Father Ray and basically repeated the story that George Lutz had told about how things went down, and it was like, it's the only time he's told his story. So that's interesting because under oath he had said, "Oh, like nothing happened," or "I didn't even know them." You know, that's just
I wonder
so
if
weird.
that's Catholic politics. I'm wondering if they're saying
And that- and
we
that
don't want
was-
this on record that you were doing this
right
in general. Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
my guess.
That's a good point.
That is a very good
I'm gonna do
point.
self-care day after this. So.
Right.
It's
So
kind of a bummer story.
I mean, this whole thing is a big fucking bummer.
all the Warren stories are real bummers.
Yeah, it really is. So, congratulations, guys. It's gonna be a bummer month.
It's gonna be a bummer month.
It's gonna be a bummer and spooky.
so
bummer in Spooky Town.
apparently, like almost immediately, George begins being jolted awake at 3:15 every morning.
Red flag
Just-
number 3.
Yep.
Yeah, you're being woken up during the time that
Same
the
time.
previous owner.
I think it was 5:15 for Conjuring 1 too.
Oh, really?
I think you're right.
It was something 50. It was 5. And I think it's
Well,
5.
one of the
I think you're
documentaries
right.
that I just watched made this whole big thing about like, and I mean this is true. I've heard this before that they called the time between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. the witching hour
Mhm.
or the devil's hour, and it's supposed to be the 1 hour in like the whole day where the veil between worlds is the thinnest.
Yeah.
And so, also, you've got your Holy Trinity, so the three, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. I don't know. So they go on this whole big long thing about 3 o'clock being so important. And apparently
Did
it
you-
was.
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
just
say
heard
that
that.
was a confirmation.
That was perfectly timed.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was creepy.
Yeah.
The witching hour. That's always the time I have to pee, and I pee downstairs in the creepy bathroom, and I think
Right.
tonight's the night that I'm gonna run into a fucking
What else?
Richard Ramirez at the end of the hallway or a ghost hanging from the ceiling. That's
Did I
what
tell you
think of.
about Richard Chase? Keep your doors locked.
Oh fuck.
Richard Chase was the vampire of Sacramento, and if your back door was open, he would just walk right in and drink your blood and kill you. We'll kill you and then drink your blood. Why don't you put like a
Right.
nightlight in the bathroom, the demon bathroom?
Anyway, all right. So George,
Good idea, Lynn.
I'm sorry.
seriously, it's almost 5 o'clock. You guys need to get it together.
All right, yeah, ma'am. Taking
Yeah,
your
ma'am.
nap.
Yeah, taking your naps over there on the fucking couch.
I gotta close
She's
my
like, I
eyes.
just need to rest for a minute, you guys.
God, could you imagine if we did this yesterday with you?
No, it would have
Oh,
been really
that would
bad.
have been so bad.
Would've been really bad.
Okay, so George begins being jolted awake at 3:15 every morning, and Kathy
God
gets
damn it.
super lucky and begins having nightmares like of the DeFeo murder. Like she's essentially watching as each person is killed, and like was like, I know what order they were killed.
I was
kind
gonna
of
say,
thing.
so does she know then who if
Yeah,
Dawn
she's
was
like, maybe
helping
she's
or not?
actually psychic is what's happening.
Yeah,
Maybe she's
can
just...
she tell us what?
But
Yeah, Kathy, come on now.
so the sleepless nights, after you do this
Mhm.
a few nights in a row,
Makes you crazy.
yeah, so it's definitely taking a toll on the couple. And apparently discipline in the house like started getting like more severe. And the kids have talked about like how they all started having personality changes. Like Kathy and George were definitely like they would hit them with wooden spoons or make them march
Oh,
around as punishment. It was really weird, and that wasn't like the kind of parents that they were
So they're channeling Big Ronnie.
Prior to that, yeah. So like it's that negative, like, and then apparently like the kids were just acting like brats, and you know, George and Kathy were annoyed with each other. It was like everybody was just amped up in this negative,
Just a chaos, pretty much.
yeah, pretty much. So on December 22nd, Kathy was in the kitchen when she heard the kids screaming for her. She runs upstairs, and a black substance has appeared to have stained the bowl of the toilet. And the kids are like, what is this? What is this? And then they go and they look, and it's the same in like all of the bathrooms.
Ew.
And then Kathy and George claim that the sewing room was filled with dozens of like houseflies in the middle of winter.
Ew.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Because in
Now-
the movie, it's bees, right?
No, so in the movie, I'm kind of making the assumption that everybody knows that there was a book called The Amityville Horror that we will touch on briefly. There was a blockbuster hit that was filmed in, I believe, 1979.
Yeah, it was
And
fresh.
then, yeah, it was
after.
real fresh. And it was like, I don't know, I think they made the movie for like $3 million. It was like one of
It
the like lowest budget
Looks like it, but it's
horror
fucking terrifying.
movies. Yeah, I mean, it's almost
Huh.
like it's scarier because it's low budget, but it raked in like over $100 million. So it was like a
Jesus.
box office smash. And then it was remade in 2005, which that's the one that Ryan Reynolds is in
yeah.
and plays.
And he does an amazing job.
George.
I saw
Yeah.
him close the bathroom mirror, and there was something behind him, and then I turned the movie off. So I've never actually seen it.
So in the movie, when Father Ray is in and he's doing that blessing, it's like he's attacked by flies.
Yeah.
But no, they added that. So, okay, so I had just talked about how Kathy and George claimed that the sewing room was filled with dozens of flies in the middle of winter. Now, this is a claim that George made. He claimed that a couple of times he claims that he talked to the police that were there that night. And this time he says that the police, upon entering the house that the night of the murders, had encountered dozens of flies. And again, that was, you know, mid-November. So weird that houseflies would be there.
Interesting.
So on Christmas evening, George noticed that the boathouse door was open again. This had been happening.
Oh my god.
And
Yeah.
so he goes down to close it. And then on his way back up, you know, he looks up and there is something in Missy's bedroom.
What? Oh god, I just remembered what the movie.
And it
what
says,
happens in the movie.
like, it was clearly not human, whatever he saw. But I mean, even if it had been human, if it's a body shape you don't
Something
know
that is
in your
not what
daughter's
is
room.
supposed to be in there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a
yeah.
little alarming.
So he goes, you know, tearing back to the house, and then they're just fine. Like, nobody there. But on another day, not that long after, Kathy's walking by Missy's room, and she hears Missy just having a whole full-on conversation. And so she kind of pokes her head in the room, and Missy is sitting in front of her rocking chair. The rocking chair is empty, but the rocking
talking.
chair is fucking
Nope.
rocking. And Missy is talking to the empty rocking chair, and like, so Kathy's like, you know, hey, Missy, who are you talking to? And she's like, oh, it's Jody. And then she had later asked Kathy, Mommies, do angels talk? And
Oh,
so Jody was apparently a pig that she saw. And apparently sometimes Jody would present herself no larger than like a teddy bear. And sometimes she was as big as the house.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
That's not terrifying.
Now,
Yeah.
paranormal investigators claim that demonic entities will often approach children in a pleasing or at least non-threatening way,
yeah.
so that the child will accept them and invite them in.
Yeah.
Gross.
And
One
so,
more reason to not have kids, friends.
they're like little demon magnets.
Mhm.
So the family reached out to Father Ray again, but he refused to come back. And he had not told them that after leaving the house, that he had developed blister-type burns on his hands that resembled the stigmata. And in that TV interview, the one with Leonard Nimoy that I talked about, he talks about going to the doctor and them just like having no idea what caused these blisters. They were like, maybe it's stress. And he's like, I'm a priest. Like,
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty good, like, I don't know why I would have like psychosomatic symptoms. On December 27th, George is once again woken up at 3:15 to a sound he described as a marching band tuning up.
Oh, God.
Right? So loud and just disruptive. And it was so loud, but when he turned to Kathy, she's like dead out, like dead to the world, sleeping soundly. So he gets up and he runs down to the landing on the stairs, and then all like the dog's laying there, the dog's asleep, and then it was just like nothing. There's nothing there, nothing making this noise, whatever. The next day, Kathy was in the basement and doing laundry, moving stuff around, and she moves a bookshelf and discovers a small room painted bright red.
Fabulous.
There was a foul...
Always a welcoming shade.
Yep. Right? There was a foul odor that would come from the room, but it wasn't there all the time. Like, it would come and it would go. The dog, their dog Harry, would cower and would go nowhere near that red room. And George, again, claimed that he had spoken to police who said that they had smelled that very smell the night that the DeFeo family was found. Also, apparently, a green gelatinous.
I was like, what does gelatinous mean?
A green gelatinous substance started just appearing in the hallway, and I heard George talk about it, and he was like, yeah, you just clean it up and then it'd be gone, and then it'd just be back the next day.
Oh my
Why
God.
are you talking about this? Like, yeah, no big deal. Jello's just coming out of surfaces.
We have a Slimer just hanging out.
Yeah,
Constant gelatinous ooze on our surfaces. We didn't really think about where it came from.
That is awesome that you said that, because yes, it made me think I was just having total.
I was trying to
Ghostbuster
remember
vibes.
the fucking name that they called the goo in Ghostbusters. I can't remember. People are yelling at me.
Shit, I know it.
Fucking thing.
Oh my god, why is that? I had it.
The goo.
Oh, ectoplasm.
Thank you.
Ectoplasm. Mattel, sponsor us. That might be Kenmore. Not sure. Anyway, we'll take everybody's money.
We'll take all the ectoplasm. Just kidding.
All the ectoplasm. So on January 4th, George and Kathy go to visit some friends. This actually kind of breaks my heart. So they go to their friends and they're telling them what's going on, like, in the house, but their friends are skeptics and just are kind of like, well, we've been in your house, like, we've had dinner there, like, you didn't notice anything, so, like, it doesn't happen to me, so I don't really believe it. And so, they leave, like, kind of brokenhearted that they're not
What a bunch of
believed.
assholes.
And then George had said that night he began to have, like, really dark thoughts. And it, like, to the point that it scared him, where he was like, these aren't my thoughts. Like, this is not who I am. But, like, they're pretty bad thoughts. So on January 14th, Father Ray was still refusing to come back, which, fair point. So they decided to try to complete a house blessing on their own.
Oh, no.
And again, at some point in doing this blessing in the house, they claim to have heard a chorus of voices yell, "Will you stop?" Anyway. So they do that on the 14th. On the 15th, this ends up being their final night in the house. A thunderstorm was raging outside, and of course, at 3:15, George wakes up. But he was completely paralyzed and couldn't move. He wakes up, he's paralyzed, he can't move. I realized how redundant that whole sentence was.
Department of Redundancy Department.
Yes. So he can't move. And he looks over for Kathy, but she's not there. And then he realizes that she is levitating above the bed. And as his mind is, like, trying to, like, pull her towards him, the more she's drifting away from him towards the wall. George then felt a presence, standing at the end of the bed, then sitting down on the bed, And then he said he felt like a hoofen.
What?
A hoof?
A hoof.
A
hoof?
hoofin? Like a
Yes.
hoof?
A hooven I can't
So
say the
he's
word.
saying it like the devil is
So, like,
standing
yes,
on his
there
chest.
is an animal thing with hooves.
A hoof on his chest.
Standing on his chest.
Okay.
And then from above, he can hear the beds of the boys, like, like jumping up and down, like banging on the floor. And of course, the boys are screaming, but he can't move. Kathy's floating all over the fucking ceiling. And so, then it just like
Kathy's floating all over the fucking ceiling like she does. Kathy's just over here.
Floating
anyway,
on the ceiling.
apparently, all of a sudden it just kind of stopped. And so George felt like he was released. He was able to get Kathy, wake her up. And then, like, later, just after this happens, the dog Harry's, like, pacing and then circling. And then, like, being sick and then pacing and circling and, like, wouldn't settle down. There's a freaking storm raging outside. And I guess Kathy was walking by her and she caught a glimpse of herself. And when she looked at herself, she was like an old woman. And so she had like deep set wrinkles and her hair was all white. And it was like a whole just like, ah. And then the front door slams. And then the dog howls.
God.
And then there's silence.
Ugh.
It was like all this stuff is happening. Like,
All at once and
you
then
know, like
done.
George is doing all that. And then, he wakes Kathy up and now she's looking and she's like this old woman. So Kathy returns to normal. The boys come down from their room, frightened okay, and little 5-year-old Missy just wants to know what's going on.
What'd you just say? They come down from their room. What?
They come down from their room like frightened.
The kids.
Frightened?
I know, but you
Oh.
you didn't say that. You said they came down from their room frightened, okay? But it's
No, no, I
Or
said
that's what it
frightened.
sounded
Oh.
like.
No, I said frightened and frightened but okay.
okay. I was like, frightened, okay, what does that mean?
No, they were.
Got it.
They
were
came,
frightened,
yes,
but safe.
Yeah.
I see.
they came down frightened. But they were okay.
Okay.
And Missy, the 5-year-old, just wanted to know what was going on.
Oh,
Like
Missy.
she wasn't even scared. She was just like, "What's going on, guys?"
This happens all the time with me.
Yeah,
You
right.
guys, I'm trying to sleep. You're just causing a ruckus down here.
Yeah.
This is annoying to me.
This was kind of the impression I got.
Yeah.
So George calls Father Ray again, like, what is happening? And Father Ray was like, y'all gotta get out. of the
Yeah.
house. Like,
He's like,
it's
the
supposed
third
to
time
call
I ran out the front
door
door.
and didn't
You
talk to you
should
about it.
have followed me.
Yeah. So they pack a few belongings and they leave, but they talk about how, like, so many people talk about the house, like, wanting them and, like, wanting to possess them and pulling them in deeper and deeper because it makes, this entity stronger.
Yeah.
But they talk about how, like, everything felt like they were going in slow motion, though. Like, even figuring out the few things that they were going to pack and take with them, it was like the house was trying to prevent them from leaving, is basically what he was saying. And he also claims that as they were driving away with their van, that they were hearing knocking on the outside of the van. And then there were several times where, like, George kind of, like, lost control, where it was like they were being pushed.
Jesus
Whatever.
fuck.
Yeah. So George, after they left, George reached out to paranormal investigator Jerry Sulfin, who agreed to send out a field reporter to do a review. But these guys were really coming from a scientific approach, and so they were taking too much time for George. Like,
Oh god.
so then this part is super weird. So he reaches out to Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s lawyer and says that, because of what they have experienced, that, like, maybe, maybe that should be looked at. Like, maybe he really didn't do this, or he felt that with what they had experienced, like maybe Butch really was possessed when he did this. On February 15th, 1976, they held a press conference with William Weber, who was DeFeo's attorney. They wanted to tell their tale. But the story very quickly gets away from them, and then they almost immediately have a falling out with William Weber, who had wanted them to sign this ridiculous contract that was like, you will only speak about this in a factitious way, and if you ever do something against that, you have to give me your house. Or you have to give the house. So it was like a ridiculous contract that like nobody would have signed.
Yeah.
Now, Mia. Oh my God, Mia.
What?
Did she
She's
fart?
Yeah, Mia, that is bad.
Yeah, I've been living with it over here.
Yeah, I know, that's like worse than one of
Twice.
Sparty's old farts, right?
Yeah. I'm in the fart
Mia.
corner over here with
Mia.
Mia. She's real proud. She's like,
I do
"What?"
want to mention that William Weber later came out and said that the whole story of Amityville was one that he cooked up with the Lutzes one night over a couple of bottles of wine, and just said the whole thing was a hoax. But
No.
based on their falling out, he had a reason to try to discredit them.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's too much detail, too many weird random things for you to
Right.
come up with
Yeah.
one night drunk.
Yeah. So the Lutzes did eventually turn to author Jay Anson, who wrote the infamous book, The Amityville Horror, which was published in 1977. And then it made into a movie, as we said, I think in 1979, and again in 2005. So Laura, I think it was Laura Didio, was a young
Dido?
reporter for Channel 5 News and had reached out to George and said, "Hey, I know some psychics," and offered them up in return. Why are you laughing at me?
Just because the 70s is just like
Yeah.
such a.
I know
guys,
some
these
psychics.
Yes, I know some psychics. And yeah, they agreed to meet up with them in return for an exclusive story. So she reached out to none other than self-proclaimed demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Woo!
Yeah.
It
So-
all comes back around.
Now, she does point out that they agreed to come and they did not ask for any money. The only thing they said was like, "Hey, could you reimburse us for gas and
Right.
tolls and stuff?" And the Channel 5 lady was like, "That's reasonable." So on February 24th of 1976, Laura, her crew, and the Warrens met at the house. And George was like waiting outside.
Oh, God.
And they were like, "Oh, like, hey, you didn't go in?" And he was just like, "Oh, no." He's like, "Actually, you guys were late getting here." And he was like, "I had to like go away and come back."
Ugh.
Like, he never, ever
Went back
stepped
in.
in that house again. And so he like gives him the key. And so they go in, and this newswoman was talking about how creepy it was that there was like still dishes in the sink and like different things laying around, that it just looked like a house, and the family just went "Phoop," and just vanished, or like they were coming home any
Which
moment.
is like some of the creepiest
That's,
things.
yeah.
One of the things I love is like when you see like Chernobyl buildings and stuff like that, where
Yeah.
people have like coffee cups out, or schools were cleared, just it gives you
Yeah.
good.
It's like this moment in time that is frozen. It's just super, super creepy.
Yeah.
So anyway, they go and he hands over the key. They go in, and so Ed's kind of leading the charge, and he's armed with holy water and a crucifix. And he walks ahead of Lorraine while she describes what she's feeling. And she said that she felt ill, and then all of a sudden she's got, a violent headache, and she said she was receiving imagery of murder, mayhem, and madness. And that walking up the steps from the first to the second floor felt like she was walking against a waterfall.
Oh.
Like, it was just so oppressive. So, so they get upstairs after she's like talking about this oppressive feeling to go up there, and she goes into the master bedroom and immediately said that she felt ill. Ed was downstairs at this time in the basement using religious provocation in order to bring out whatever spirits or entities, wanting them to come forward. And so, like, I wouldn't recommend that, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
This is
I'm
why
just
we
saying.
meditated before we
Yeah.
started
Well,
because
and-
that's dangerous behavior.
I mean, the thing is, what's hard here is that Ed and Lorraine had this huge reputation, even by this point, for the work that they were doing, and like, I don't know, I get wanting to call them in because at the time they really were the pioneers in the field, but like, oh, they did a lot of things that like
That were
oh.
just
Yeah, so Lindsay's gonna tell us all
Yeah.
about that in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
So anyway, after spending time in the house, Ed and Lorraine agree that being in the home was the most terrifying experience either of them had ever had.
Jesus.
Lorraine said that she felt that it was a very oppressive presence in the home, but she did not feel that it was the ghost of the DeFeos. The Warrens then arranged a seance. And say again, please note, we do not recommend this.
Do not recommend
Um,
seances or Ouija boards.
Yeah, seances, Ouija
Fuck with
boards,
it at your
anything
own
where
risk.
you are saying, who am I speaking with? Like, no, none of that shit. Stay
Yeah, if you're
away.
inviting whatever
Yes,
into your home,
yeah,
it's not
you're
safe.
literally giving permission for any, and that's how stories like these happen. Anyway, unbeknownst to them, unbeknownst to the Warrens,
Mia just shoved her
Mia's
head
like-
right up under the
Mia's
mic.
like, I don't care
Mia
about the
literally
podcast. Unbeknownst to them, George on his own just started calling up other psychics and inviting them. So when Ed and Lorraine
Oh my
and
god.
the Channel 5 crew show up, they're like, there's a ton of people here. Like, in total, about 20 people
What
were
the
present.
It's like when you have a small get together and then suddenly like the entire
Right.
house is full of
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
party people.
Exactly.
It's
Like,
just
what?
raging kegger.
You're like, I'm sorry, who are you?
yeah. So these include, paranormal investigator Jerry Sulfin, Ed and Lorraine Warren, Linda and her crew, and then Marvin Scott, the Channel 5 news director, as well as Mary Pascarella and Alberta Riley, who were the other psychics that they brought in.
This name sounds so familiar.
Yeah, I know. The seance was conducted in the first floor dining room. Mary almost immediately picks up a dark shadow with a hood and said that it was moving around. Alberta advised that whatever was there was making her heart race, and Lorraine reiterated that a dark presence was with them. Mary felt so drained by the seance, she had gone up to Missy's room and had laid down on her bed.
Oh.
She claims that she had fallen asleep briefly, but when she woke up, she saw a group of figures at the door.
Why would you do this to yourself?
Right. She begins to recite the Lord's Prayer, and these figures begin reciting it back at her backwards. Yes.
Nope.
I don't like it.
Nope.
It's not
So
Black
she
Sabbath
got up
record.
from the bed and she threw holy water at the figures and continued to pray as she ran out of the room. But according to Mary, you know the sound, that like hissing, sizzling, like when
When it
water hits fire, where it's
Yeah.
Or, a
Like-
Or when I
vampire.
touch my skin. Not because I'm sunburned, because I'm so hot.
Oh my God. It's just-
But she said that that's the sound it made when she had thrown the holy water at
Like a
those
sizzling
figures,
noise.
like a sizzling noise. So Lorraine's impression of the second floor was that it was depressing, mocking, and just like a horrific feeling. But she does decide to go into the sewing room where the priest had his issue. And she goes in at 3:15, which was when George had reportedly repeated waking up. George was also the hour in which DeFeo killed his family. Lorraine claims that that room is the dominion of pure evil.
Oh.
Yeah. She said she began to feel so horrible she had to leave the room and literally said, I hope this is as close to hell as I ever get.
Jesus.
And I mean,
Wow.
she's a seasoned person at this,
Yeah.
kind of at this point, working on a lot of cases. Lorraine had not really wanted to go up to the third floor, which is where I believe Dawn's bedroom was. But she said she went up there, but she has absolutely no recollection of being up on that third floor. It's like as soon as she went up, boom, nothing. Like
Holy
gone
fuck.
from her mind. The Warrens were convinced at this point that the home was infested with demonic entities, and for once, they actually admitted defeat. They went to the DeFeo, or not the DeFeos. I knew I was going to do that. They went to the Lutzes and basically
We're like, sorry.
Right. And now, not only did they have what they were dealing with before, but now Ed Warren's been in their basement using religious provocation to,
Bridle
bring things
everybody
forth.
up.
It's like, and you've done
They're like, and also we
seances.
made it worse, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Oh
and
my God.
there is a lot of, or there is a theory that initial blessing that Father Ray did is what kicked everything off.
Oh, that makes sense because nothing was happening.
Well, I mean,
really that we know of.
I mean, the thing,
But-
there's a murder. It sat empty for a year. Thinking back, like I for sure would have smudged the place. I just found it super interesting that this was the case.
They
that
did this with in the Conjuring one. Remember when they had that seance and they fucked that shit up even more?
But I mean, it's just crazy for them to like. I'm really surprised that they like literally walked away.
Just
and
said, yeah.
I mean, they were convinced that this home was infested. They actually said that they thought it was the most evil house in America. And they told the Lutzes, like, y'all need to get that whole home exorcised. Like, not a person, like the whole home. The Lutzes had been continuing to pay the mortgage on the home with the hopes that, like, they're calling in all these paranormal experts. Like, clearly somebody will be able to clear the home so that they could return.
Mm-hmm.
But after the Warrens said that they were unable to help, that it was too much for even them, George and Kathy just decided to, like, let the bank take the house. They sold or, like, gave away their possessions, like, because they certainly didn't want to take any of the furniture.
Fuck no.
And, like, George said, so they sold or gave away everything and bought, like, one-way tickets to San Diego. And he says that, like, when they pulled up at JFK, he gave, like, the keys and the title of the car to whatever guy was, like, doing the initial check-in. Was just like, hey, here's a car, man. Because, like, they were like, we're leaving everything.
Holy shit.
But before they moved, still too afraid to go back into the house, George had asked some of his friends to go buy the house and pick up some necessities and paperwork, like the kids' birth certificates and their school records, because they're getting ready to move states. And the friends were told not to eat or drink anything in the home, to get kind of in and out as quickly as possible.
Kind of like ballsy to even ask your friends to
Right?
go back.
Yeah.
But
I'd file
the
for
friends-
paperwork.
But the friends that they asked, one of them was the skeptical friend that didn't believe them the January before. So,
Mhm.
they get there during the day and they, all these like big biker guys, because I think they were like from his motorcycle people. He hears these big like motorcycle dudes and they're like, they sit down and they're like in the kitchen and they're just like, hey man, so we're like in the house where it happened, and they're drinking beers and just, whatever.
No.
And then they go and get the stuff. And the entire time that they're there, nothing happens. House is completely blissfully quiet. And so, these friends again are just like, I don't know, man. I was in the house. Nothing happened to me.
Ugh.
So several more investigations occurred over the years, and there are kind of almost as many investigations that seem to prove that the house is evil as there are ones debunking it and saying it's a total hoax.
Good
So
God.
that's part of what made researching for this story particularly difficult. And again, there's so many pros and cons, and there's no way that I could possibly list them all. So it comes down to what you believe. However, for what it is worth, Kathy and George both took polygraph tests and passed with flying colors.
Wow.
And George was adamant until the day he died that the whole thing was true. Kathy was more on the like, well, yeah, some things we embellish, but really most of it happened, kind of thing. So Kathy and George ended up divorcing in 1988. I do think that the strain of this
Oh,
whole
1,000%.
thing,
They lasted
definitely.
longer than I thought.
yeah, seriously. Kathy died of emphysema in 2004. and George passed 2 years later in 2006 from heart disease. Danny Lutz, the oldest son, who appeared in the 2013 documentary My Amityville Horror, which Lindsey showed me last night. I saw some clips from it. I didn't get the opportunity to watch the whole thing in advance of this, but
It's really interesting.
yeah, and I know through clips he maintains that the hauntings happened, and it really seemed like, I saw a clip where he was talking about this is the first time for me telling you guys, but to tell you this, I have to go back. I have to go back to that place where this was all happening, and that's not something that I naturally want to do.
He talks a lot about the abuse too.
Yeah,
when George was
whatever. I mean, George was a former Marine, but when you listen to interviews with him, I mean, he sounds relatively calm demeanor, and the kids, from what I understand, liked him. Yeah. Before they moved into this house, it was just after the house is when everybody's relationship changed. And also that it wasn't the kids were being angelic little kids, and they were being they were acting up, and they were, doing things to get into trouble. And so anyway, Christopher Quarantino, who is the middle son, he was 7 at the time, dropped the Lutz name and went back to his birth father's name, has said that the details in the book and the films are so exaggerated that they're essentially fiction. But he does maintain it was not a hoax. Things did happen in the home. He also claimed that George was obsessed with anything paranormal, and that he had a few books on the occult.
That's right.
And he said that George would apparently go into the basement and chant names of demonic entities in an attempt to bring them in. So he feels that whatever was in the house was due to George's dabbling in the occult and not really anything to do with the DeFeo murders. Melissa, or Missy, the youngest, was only 5 at the time, and she has chosen to try to live her life privately. Just kind of under I totally get it. All of these kids were bullied first for living in the murder house, live in the murder house. And then later for their parents being called liars when all the Amityville's a hoax. So they really just couldn't catch a break. Like I said, I'm not going to go real into details about or into the arguments for or against whether Amityville happened or what happened. There's just too much information out there. It's contradictory, and none of it can be substantiated because none of us were there that night. There was a claim that said that George had made all of this up because his construction business was going under. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay, yeah, I mean, I see people doing desperate things to save a business. But is this the story you would concoct to tell?
That's the thing. People think you make money by saying, "Oh, I see aliens," or "Oh, I see ghosts." Yeah, you don't make money.
People think you cray.
Exactly. You lose a lot of your respect.
I don't. It doesn't make sense to me that this would be the idea, a way of coming up with some quick cash.
Him.
Yeah, I mean, I think I read somewhere that, so they had signed with Jay to write the book. And I don't know, I read somewhere that I think that through the whole thing, they got somewhere around $400,000 for selling their story, which sounds like a lot, but
not really.
MGM made hundreds of millions of dollars just off of the first movie. And so...
And they continue to make movies.
Right.
So it's just
the house itself has had an address change to keep the looky-loos away. So if you try to go and find 112 Ocean Avenue, doesn't exist. That particular address doesn't exist anymore. And the creepy kind of quarter moon windows that look like eyes have had the shutters changed. The windows have changed. It has changed several times since the Lutzes left, and no families have come forward saying that they have experienced issues in the home. The family that moved in immediately after claimed that the house was fine, and they didn't see any of the damages described in the book. In the book, doors were flying off their hinges, and they said, this couple said that the red room was literally nothing more than a closet under the stairs. But Linda DeFeo spoke with one resident of the home, and she said that after listening to 10 minutes of this woman just be like, this is BS, and this is why Amityville is BS, Linda had asked a question about Danny Lutz. So this might have been when that My Amityville came out. And the woman retorted that, well, it was George and Danny messing around with the occult that had brought dark forces into this house. Essentially confirming that, like, something was still there. So, I don't know. Like, personally, yeah, I do think that details of this story were exaggerated to tell a good story. But I do believe something happened in that house. Like, something, it was such an amazing deal for them that I don't feel like they would have left unless they had to.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's where I personally land. The saddest part, though, of this story is that throughout all of these decades, tons of people have made a ton of money off the story. Jay Anson, who wrote the book, MGM, who made the movies and documentaries. It soured relations between George and the kids, and even the two brothers against each other. And just a lot of money was made, and very little of it actually went to the Lutz family. So if it had been George's plan to, like, make all this cash, it totally backfired. And the kids, obviously struggled growing up with this hanging over them. And, they essentially got nothing for all the trauma. Now, do I think that money makes up for trauma? No. But it's still just, I don't know.
It's the only real closure that you can get.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's it. That's the story with Ronald DeFeo and the Amityville house. It was just for sale recently. I think it most recently sold for about $950,000. So
why would anybody want to live there?
A lot of people do.
Oh, like, there are a lot of people. I think that, it's the same
'Cause then
people
you
that buy serial killer memorabilia.
You can, exploit it or...
Yeah. That's it. That's the story.
Yay!
Did you guys like that one?
Beautiful.
That was a bummer.
I
But
don't know
yes.
why it was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean,
No, it was
definitely-
beautifully told. It's a bummer of a story.
Oh my
It
God.
is super bummer, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a good story. That's really sad.
But I mean, the Warrens aren't involved with happy stories.
No.
So
No, like, they weren't coming to, like, crash your birthday party.
I did not know what I was getting all of us into.
Yeah.
When I was
She
like,
had
oh,
this
yeah.
idea.
And the other thing, too, and this is, this is another interesting thing for us, because it's the first time that we're kind of co-working on a story where we all kind of know some of the details, and we're working on one kind of large story, but we're each telling a piece of it.
Yeah.
And so it's weird knowing some of the things ahead of time that we don't normally know and get to react to. But there was a ton about Amityville that I had never heard before.
Yeah.
I mean, I pretty much knew
I just knew the movie.
and then, like, loosely based. And I knew that a family had been killed in the home, but I didn't know that much about the DeFeos. But I would recommend that you listen to our stories first, and
They're
then
really good.
and then do further investigating, because you're gonna feel like you're getting all this new cool information. But if you do it the other way around, you're gonna be like, man, these bitches don't do research, and we do. We do a lot of research.
We do. We don't want to be sad, but I don't know. Goodbye.
Remember who you are and what you represent.
Yay!
Bye.
Love you.
Love you.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. We put out new episodes every single Wednesday, and if you're impatient like me, be sure to become a Patreon where you can get your episodes early each week. For as little as $5 a month, you not only significantly support the production of this podcast, but you'll also get ad-free episodes in addition to them being early. For pictures, videos, and links related to this episode, be sure to check out our Instagram at 3sacrime. And for more information, go to 3sacrime.com.